Hello, and thank you for watching this video tutorial of the TSL Synthesis Synthesizer. It's a web page keyboard synthesizer that lets you specify how its sound parameters will change over time based on what you're playing. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you the different ways that you can play the keyboard itself, the different sound parameters and effects available to you, and how you can use the different TSL control panels to specify how you want the effects to change automatically based on what you're playing. Our visual of the keyboard is at the bottom of the web page. So if you'll scroll down, you'll see this keyboard that you can click on with your mouse to produce different tones. You'll notice that we just get a pure sine tone, which is the default sound setting. And we get the note as long as the mouse is held down. When we release the mouse, the note stops. This is one way that you can use the keyboard. There are two other ways that you can use the keyboard. One of them is to use your QWERTY keyboard on your computer. So the middle row and upper row of your QWERTY keyboard will also activate notes on the keyboard on the web page. And the final way to use the keyboard is if you have a USB MIDI controller. If so, then you should be able to just plug the USB into your computer from your MIDI controller. And especially if you're using a Chrome browser, the web page will listen for MIDI out coming from the MIDI controller. But more details on this will be dependent on the specific MIDI controller that you're using. So now that we can play the keyboard, let's go over the different sound options and what they do. The waveform dropdown lets you choose the shape of the waveform of the synthesizer. So by default, it's a sine, but for instance, I can choose a sawtooth, and you'll hear that it's a different tone. The LFO parameters control a low-frequency oscillator that is modulating the pitch of the synthesizer, which basically acts like a vibrato. The AM and FM options stand for amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, respectively. They both modulate the waveform to create harmonics. They function similarly, so I'm going to demonstrate the frequency modulation. The filter acts to shape the tone of the synthesizer by attenuating certain frequencies. The harmonizer simply adds a parallel harmony to whatever note that you're playing. And the arpeggiator arpeggiates over notes that are held down when multiple notes are held down at the same time. If you don't want to worry about actually playing notes yourself, then you can use the melody maker to play a random melody for you from a set of notes. When you toggle the melody maker, you'll see that the set of notes it's randomly choosing from are lit up, and you can activate or deactivate these notes using any of the methods that you would use to play the keyboard itself. What's unique about the TSL Synthesis Synthesizer is that you can create a specification describing how the sound effects should be altered when the keyboard is used, and the web page will automatically alter the effects according to the specification. This works through program synthesis, which is a field of computer science dedicated to automatically generating programs that satisfy some sort of user intent. When you use the interface to create a TSL specification, TSL standing for temporal stream logic, you provide a blueprint for what must be guaranteed in the program that's generated. Then the back end will automatically generate code satisfying the blueprint. and embed it back into the web page itself. This interface is the TSL alpha interface. We can use the drop-down menus to specify when and what will happen. The left-hand column lets you choose notes that will trigger different actions, and the right-hand column lets you choose the action that will be triggered. So for here, I can say note 1 that I'll show you how to save, will toggle the LFO. In order to save specific notes that you want to trigger actions, you can use the keyboard. When you play a note on the keyboard, the note save section will be updated. And then in order to lock a note in place for either note 1 through 4, you click the save reset button. Then you'll notice that when you play a different key, notes 2 through 4 got updated, but note 1 was still locked in because I clicked save. So now we're ready to synthesize the program that will satisfy this specification, that playing note 1 will make the LFO toggle. So this is in the back end generating a program that satisfies this specification. And now that the program has been synthesized and embedded back into the web page, we can see how it sounds. So that's the TSL alpha interface. You can try different interfaces for specifying TSL specifications using the Switch Interfaces button. This is the TSL beta interface. Once again, we can use these drop-down menus to create a specification for the control flow. What's different is that in this interface, we can actually use aspects of the signal flow itself to specify when things will happen. In the TSL beta interface, the second column lets you choose a trigger that will enact a certain action, such as playing a note. And the third interface lets you choose the action that will actually occur, such as increasing the frequency of the LFO. The first column lets you specify an additional condition that must be met in order for the trigger in the second column to actually activate the action in the third column. So in this case, I can go when waveform is sawtooth, playing note 1 will change the LFO to increase the frequency by 1 hertz. If the waveform is not sawtooth, then playing note 1 will not necessarily accomplish this action. Not guaranteed. So to give an example specification, I can provide more parameters. So what this specification is saying is that when the waveform is sawtooth, playing note 1 will increase the frequency. When the waveform is sine, playing note 1 will decrease the frequency. And at any time, playing note 2 will change the waveform to sine. And let's see what happens, what program gets generated that satisfies this. Oh, let me turn on the LFO. The final interface I want to show you is what we call the TSL full interface. So this is the TSL full interface, and what we see in this interface is actually just a text editor. This allows you to write TSL specifications directly using temporal stream logic itself. So for more information on how to write temporal stream logic, you can go to the link above. And this provides a handy link for the syntax of TSL full. TSL temporal stream logic is similar to using propositional logic, if you're familiar with that, except that you don't only specify what is true and false, but you specify how parameters are actually updated. So for instance here, I'm saying if note 67 is played, MIDI note 67, then FM synthesis will be updated by toggling FM synthesis. If note 64 is played, the LFO will be updated by toggling the LFO. One last thing that's important to mention is the case of unrealizable specification. If you create a specification in which some of the conditions actually conflict with each other, then the program will be unrealizable. For instance, always playing note 1 turns the LFO on, or always playing note 1 turns the LFO off. The specification makes no sense, and when I click synthesize, we'll get that it's unrealizable. And at that point, it's up to you to debug this specification to find the contradiction that created the conflict and resolve it yourself. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and I hope you have fun with the TSL Synthesis Synthesizer.